In the formative days, we didn't have all the communication devices we have now. So that a call came to the police phoned the search manager they had on record as the person who had the resources available. So our job then was to communicate with the 5 squads we'd formed, 5 members in each squad, or 6 members, and then while I'm gathering my gear, my partner, my wife, Margaret, she's phoning the 5 members of the squad to verify who's there, who's available, who can respond now, who can respond in the morning.
Back in the old days when I was involved, we didn't have pagers, we didn't have much of anything. So if there was a call out, I was often the person phoning. So I'd be going down the list and just phoning everybody. So of course, if you're phoning someone at 3 a.m, it's nice if you happen to know their wife's name, who might answer the phone.
Remember, in those days, we didn't have the communications. So the wives played a very important role, night or noon or midnight or 4 a.m. So the women were very much involved in that role, a very important role.
Well, back in those days, it was a search and rescue team. Every time we got a call out, we didn't have an exact location for whoever was injured or missing, so we had to send out various teams to search first to find them before we could do first aid or recovery.
Going back to the early days, we had no radios, no real equipment, and we had no maps. So whenever we had a call, let's say up Mount Seymour, we had to organize groups to go this trail and that trail. Then we had no communications with any of them, and sometimes guys went in the field and one group found the missing person within 15 minutes and the search was over, and those guys, they were out 4 or 5 hours or sometimes until the morning, until they came back and everything was over.
Personally, I got sent out on a search assignment one time in really poor snow, icy conditions, and they had found the person about 15 minutes after we departed. But we didn't know that because we didn't have a radio. So it was a bit of a turning point for me, because it was at that moment I decided somebody has to do something about this, and I guess it's going to be me. So I started looking into how to acquire more radio equipment for the team. We couldn't really afford to do that. The team just didn't have that kind of resources. So we had to acquire older equipment and try to keep it working, try to get batteries for it and so on.
That's when we started the radios, was around 1975, 76. But there wasn't a radio for everybody. In those days, to get a radio was not necessarily a positive, because you had to carry the thing, and the radios in those days weighed 20 pounds.
Originally, we had one beer box radio with an antenna with a red thing on it, and whoever got to carry that in the woods, you could tell because they had a red mark in their face from that bloody thing hitting them. And we had one handheld radio that went along with that. Those 2 people could communicate. The rest of us are in the field doing what we think we should be doing without any communications.
It wasn't very difficult to get out of radio contact. Suicide Gully would be a typical example. You would start going down the gully, you'd lost contact. And this was, okay, we felt competent. I wasn't worried that we wasn't in radio contact. But when you find people, you can't tell them. If you're in trouble, you can't tell them. And there was hundreds of places in the mountains where you would just be out of radio contact.
So you're wasting time exposing people to a risk. And in one case, we shut the operation down and forgot we had one field team still out in the field. Well, that practice continued until we had a very unfortunate accident where Bob McGregor fell into a birch run on Mount Tantalus. And I didn't even know he had fallen. I'm climbing another mountain nearby, but he'd fallen, and it was 3 hours before we heard, because we didn't have the communications to tell each other what was going on. That made the strategic decision come forward: we must have 100% radio comms at all times. If you didn't have it, you'd rejig the program to make sure you had it.
You're spread out everywhere doing various things, and if you're in avalanche territory, you need to have communication as to what the hell is happening around you. So to have radios available to you on your person to be able to call for help or guide other people, extremely important. I think we eventually ended up with 6 handheld radios. So that allowed you to put out 6 teams. But if they ever got separated, you got a big problem. The other big thing is, provided I could see you, I could communicate. The moment you stepped around the corner, I moved. We didn't have the repeaters that we have today.
We had people who were on top of knobs and ridges so they could repeat the signal information from A to B onward to C and D. That was sometimes humorous because, of course, the accents of some of the volunteers were anything from German to English to Scottish to whatever. So what came out as they tell them 237, by the time you threw with a signal, it was 732 and it's in an Irish accent. But one way or another, we got it done.
It was always terrible not being in radio contact. And due to the efforts of a guy called Dirk de Jager, he started putting up these repeaters. And suddenly, spots that were silent came to life.
The communications line of sight. So if you have a mountain in between person A and person B, the communication won't be able to go through. So the repeater is usually on the top of a mountain and allows person A to communicate with the repeater on top, and then the repeater broadcasts that to the person on the other side of the mountain. Repeaters, just like the radios, are line of sight. So we have multiple repeaters across the North Shore to deal with that are linked together. So for instance, somebody that's up Indian Arm would talk on their radio. It would go to Seymour repeater. Seymour is linked to Strachan repeater, and Strachan repeater will rebroadcast that, for instance, up Howe Sound or to somebody that wouldn't necessarily be within range of the Seymour repeater or the person up Indian Arm. So having those repeaters linked means that we could have people hearing everything that's going on the call, regardless of where they are on the North Shore.
We also went from the standard radio that was only one frequency to multiple channels. We can now talk to police, ambulance, fire, whoever else we need to talk to with their permission.
The fact that we can all talk to each other on the same radio channel eliminates so much unclear messaging. Oh, you're on this side of the river. Well, we thought you were on the other side of the river. There's no sense in going in as a rescuer, then end up by being rescued yourself. That doesn't help.
I can remember one of the first calls we got on a cell phone, and Jerry Brewer said, "Okay guys, I want you to look around and tell me what you see," because I had no idea where they were. And so in the description that they was able to give, Jerry said, "I know where you are. We'll send a team in to get you."
That was one of the first times that we had received information that jumped past search to rescue, because we knew where the person was.
You can find out where they are by phoning them if you're lucky they have service, and figuring out where they are. And then your task is to get to them safely and extract them safely.
It's not perfect. We've had a number of calls where people thought their cell phones would work, but they happened to be up in what we know as Haines Valley or behind Grouse Mountain. Well, your cell phone is next to useless.
Cell phones, like the repeaters, they're also line of sight. So we have great coverage on the front side of the North Shore because of the city and proximity to cell sites and things like that. But as you go further into the backcountry, you lose communication. There's lots of places on the North Shore that have no cell coverage whatsoever.
Once you get a little distance behind grouse, you're sheltered, and sometimes even one of the new sat phones won't work back there because you're too close to the mountains and they won't get the satellites up above you. So I had an amateur band radio, and at the time it was BC Tel had something there you could hook up to their repeaters, which were all around, and I could use that, but I could also use amateur bands. So in behind Crown and the Haines Valley, I could actually get out with my radio through a cell tower, which it wasn't a cell tower then, it was an amateur repeater that would have an auto link into BC Tel's telephone system, and phone the search manager, where there were team members beside me with the radios, couldn't talk to anybody. So that was pretty handy.
The subjects are in 2 groups. The one who called in is Lena. She is higher up. The other 2 are out of cell range and they're further down.
When I think about what some of the most dangerous areas now on the North Shore for hikers, they're not the most treacherous in terrain. They're more the places that don't have cell connections.
Usually we recommend hikers stay together, but in this case, separating so one of them could get cell service in that steep area was a good call.
Hi, how are you?
You may be in the most dangerous terrain, but if you can call for help and we can get you a helicopter and an emergency room doctor there in 20 minutes, it's not as dangerous, right? You get good medical treatment.
LifeSeeker is a piece of technology that we have acquired fairly recently. It allows us to detect a cell phone when the cell phone is outside of the normal network coverage.
It's a unit that we can put in the helicopter, and it's able to communicate with a cell phone even though it doesn't have connection to a cell tower.
As long as your cell phone is on, doesn't matter if it's even got a charge left in it, you can't be, it's too low to talk, too low to text, but if it's on and in your pocket, this technology will pick up that phone.
Up and coming, I mean, now you have iPhones that have satellite communication built into them. People have already successfully made emergency calls outside of cell coverage.
It's becoming more common for people to carry satellite SOS devices for if they become lost or injured in the backcountry. The advantage is they're smaller and cheaper than having a satellite phone. These devices work in areas that don't have cell coverage. When someone activates an SOS device, that signal is routed to a call center. The call center will then reach out to the police in that area, who in turn will see whose response it is, whether it's in the municipal boundary or outside of that. If it's outside, that will be a search and rescue call. And North Shore Command, it's 8-6 on the link. The challenge that we face is sometimes they can be activated by accident. As a responding agency, we always treat activations as if someone is in need of help.
Obviously, with today's technologies, with cell phones, GPSing, tracking, it has taken the guesswork out for the most part of where somebody is.
It's unbelievable how advanced the group is now compared to what we went through.
We are using the best of communication devices that we can have to track our searchers.
Go ahead, North Shore 6.
All at the top of this tracking now.
Copy, thanks.
To communicate with people in the field.
Elevation 900 meters.
To communicate with those people who require our assistance from Team NSR.